Hi everybody, this is Pat in the paper closet. We're back today. We're going to be working on the second part of our Little Things album. I told you I was going to explain to you, not just show you how to make it, but how to make it your own way. Make it the size you want, the number of pages that you want, and the colors you want. So we're going to be working on the binding of the pages. Now this piece right here, you see this polka dotted piece? This is the paper I used for my binding. Now on the book I'm making today, I'm going to just be using my base color, the black. But you can make your binding match whatever you want. Any design paper you're using, you could use a piece of that. I'm going to show you how to figure out how wide you need it. And I'm going to show you how I calculated, I'm going to try to show you how I calculated the numbers. Now I don't know if you can see this here, I can't zoom in, but this right here are all the spaces we're going to need to fold our binding. Now it looks big, but it all gets folded up. You see each one of these little loops that I made here? These two folds are going to get glued together. So that's going to be right up against here. This right here is your half-inch space that you need for your pages to, in other words, to fill them up with whatever you want. You need room. So on here you can see on this book, this is the last fold of my binding that I did here. And then I left a half-inch space between the binding and my cover. This way my pages fold nicely, they don't get in the way of each other, there's a lot of room. Now if you just wanted to make thin pages with maybe one flip out on them, you could use 1/4 of an inch, but that's a whole different set of numbers. Now I designed this one so there are 5 hinges in this book. So this is 1/2 inch, is called a wing. It goes 1/2 inch, 1.5 inches, I'm sorry, beyond where the fold is for your cover. It'll be underneath your cover, your paper, when you're finished, but that holds it in place so it can't pull out. You need at least 1.5 inches beyond the fold of your cover at the back and the front. So here we have our 1.5 inches for the front. This would be the fold of our book for the cover, the front cover. This is our first 1/2 inch gusset. That's in between the 2 pages. You always need a gusset at the front and a gusset at the back. So that's the first 1/2 inch. And each one of these are 1/2 inch. So you need the 1/2 inch gusset, and then the 2 1/2 inches to fold. We're going to glue them together to make the actual hinge that goes inside the page. So I wanted 5 of those. Okay, so here's where the first one ends. So we've got 3 1/2 inch marks. Here's the second one. We've got 3 1/2 inch marks. Here's the third one. We've got 3 1/2 inch marks. The fourth one, 3 1/2 inch marks, and the fifth one, 3 1/2 inch marks. Now we have to add another 1/2 inch because we want a gusset at the back, for the back cover. This gusset right here. And then we have our 1.5 inch wing that goes beyond the, I can't explain this, beyond the fold of your cover. That's what holds it all down, keeps it in place, so when you're moving your pages, nothing's going to pull out. Okay, so now, to do this, I figured we need an 11 inch wide sheet of paper, cardstock. I added them all up. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 1.5 inches, plus that extra 1/2 inch. Don't leave this one out, it's important. So we have 1 1/2 times 7 comes to 10.5 inches, plus our little 1/2 inch that we need at the back. So that's a total of 11 inches, which is perfect. It's on one sheet of 8.5 by 11-inch cardstock. So you figure out what color you want to make your hinge part, your binding part. Either your designer paper that you're using to decorate your book, or your base color. So I'm going to do the base color. I'm going to move this out of the way for a minute. We're going to need a scoreboard. My little chart over here. Okay, so I'm going to put this on the scoreboard, and we're going to follow our marks. Once you mark it out, it's very easy to do. So first we need 1.5 inches for that left side wing, the front cover wing. That takes us to 1.5 inches. Now we need a 1/2 inch gusset. We're at 2 inches. I know it's hard to see on the black, I'm sorry. Okay, so we've got our 1.5. We've got a 1/2 inch gusset at the front. And then we need 1/2 inch and another 1/2 inch. Now that takes us to right here. What happened to my camera? Sorry. That will take us to right here. So we've got the 1.5 inch, we've got the 1/2 inch gusset, and 2 of our hinge pieces that are going to get glued together. And that has taken us to 3 inches. Alright, so now we're just going to continue making 1/2 inch marks, 1 for the gusset, 2 for the hinge. That takes us to 4.5. I'm just going to continue. 1 inch for the gusset, 2 1/2 inches for the hinge. That takes us to 6. So we have this one. We've gone 1, 2, 3. I believe this is where we are. So we should need 2 more. Okay, 1/2 inch at 6.5. That's for the gusset. 7 is a 1/2 inch for one side of our hinge. 7.5 is for the other side of our hinge. So we should be at 7.5 right now. Okay, we're going to do 1 more. I think we need. I'm going to count. 1 for a 1/2 inch gusset, a 1/2 inch for the left side of our hinge, and 1 more 1/2 inch for the right side of the hinge. That takes us to 9 inches. Now if we add our 1/2 inch, yeah, we're right. We're going to add our 1/2 inch for the last gusset at the back cover. That takes us to 9.5, which leaves us 1.5 inches for our back wing, we'll call that. We have a front wing and a back wing, and then in between all that, all we did is score the 1/2 inch lines all the way across up to our wing, which is right here. So actually, if you just want to follow my instructions, you put your 11-inch sheet in the scoreboard, score it 1.5 inches, one wing, scoring 1.5 inches for the last wing, and then just go across every 1/2 inch, making a score line till you get to your wing. Okay? You can see the lines very good. Okay, I'm going to show you how we're going to fold this. We're going to need our glue. First we're going to cut the length. Let's see. The size of the binding strip is the same length as your pages. So our pages are, what's the length on our pages? 8 1/4. So we're just going to cut off the bottom of this at 8 1/4. I know this sounds confusing, but if you put it on paper, it will be a lot easier. All you have to remember is that extra 1/2 inch at your back cover. Because if you don't put that in, your last page is going to be flush up against your cover fold. And it's going to get in the way. Now I'm going to cut this off. Let's turn it around. I'm going to cut it at 8 1/4. Now remember, this is for my size book. If you change your size, you're going to have to change all your numbers. And I just cut it at 8 1/4. So I cut off 1/4 inch. This was an 8 1/2 by 11 inch sheet of cardstock. Now there you can see all my score lines. So you need your 1 1/2 inch first. Put the other 1 1/2 on the other end. And then in between to score all the 1/2 inch lines. Okay, now we're going to start folding them. Front wing, you can just fold it up a little. Now this next one is a gusset. We don't want to fold that. So can you see the next two? Here's our gusset, the first 1/2 inch. Now these next two, we're going to make a peak where the two of those meet in the middle. Just kind of bend it up a little and then push it down flat against your table. And you see what I meant? So that is our one hinge. So we have a 1/2 inch gusset and this is the hinge. Now we're going to do the same thing all the way across. This will be our next 1/2 inch gusset. Right next to here. Let's see if I can hold it up. There it is. The next 1/2 inch line, we are going to fold it. No, we're not going to fold that at all. We're going to skip a 1/2 inch, skip the next space, and then the next two, we're going to do the same thing we did here. Right in the middle of those two, we're going to pull it up and make a peak. So we skipped one fold line. The next one we make the peak on. Like that. Fold them together. Press it down on your table. And now you have two hinges. You have two hinges with a gusset in the middle and a gusset on the left-hand side. Can you see that? There's two hinges, so these aren't taking up any space. They're folded together. We're going to glue them. And now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to skip this score line. And then the fold in between the next two spaces is going to be our next peak. So skip one. On the next one, you make a peak. Fold them together. Press it down on your table so you get that crease. And now you have three hinges. Can you see that clearly? There you go. Now we have three hinges and two gussets in between and one gusset to the left of the first one. So now we're going to make two more hinges going across. So you skip the next fold line, the next score line, and the line in between that next one, we'll make a peak. So it's gusset, peak. And now we have four hinges. Oops. Can you see that? With gussets in between, all a 1/2 inch. And now we have one more to do. We're going to skip the next score line. And on the next one, we're going to make our peak. Fold it up, press it down on the table. And we're going to kind of crease these. we have our 5 hinges. And after that last hinge, that last peak, we have one more fold line for our back gusset. Our back 1/2 inch, and then the wing. So you just fold this up a little bit. You don't really need a big crease in there. Not right now, anyway. Okay, so our next step is to turn it over. And the two that are now they're a valley. Excuse me. Okay, these two that were the peak, and turn it over, and they're now the valley. So we're going to put glue on one side of the valley, and we're going to glue these two together like this. And on the back, all you're going to see is where they meet. Let me glue it, and then I can show you. Got a frog in my throat. Not a good time. Alright, so the first one is our 1/2 inch gusset. Now on the second space, we're going to put glue up to the folds. Now you can go over the fold on the middle part, but not on the other side. I'll show you in a second what I mean. All the way into that fold, but not over the outer fold. Not outside of this part. Okay, now we're going to take it, fold it over, so it glues together. Let me rub it down a few seconds so I can show you. Move everything out of the way. Let your glue catch. Now when you fold this back, all you're going to see is a little seam from what you just glued together. Let's put it the right way. So here's our 1/2 inch gusset, and there is our seam. Now you can see it better. The seam we just made where we glued the 2 hinges together. So this is going to be our next 1/2 inch gusset. Here's our next valley on this side. So these two are going to get glued together. Okay. And now we're going to put glue on one side of that. You don't need it on both sides, just one side. Gluing one side of the valley that we have here. I wish there was an easier way to explain this. But so we had peaks on the other side. Now we're on the reverse side where it's valleys. Okay, now again, we're going to fold this one over. Press it down till the glue sticks. Now a lot of people do this with double-sided tape, which you could do, but that uses a lot of tape. Okay, can you see now we have two that are glued together. These two. They're now hinges, sticking up. They're going to dry, they're going to harden, and they're going to be very sturdy, because that's what our pages are going to go on. The opening on our page will go over. Okay, here's our next gusset. So these are the next two we're going to glue together. Get it to the back. Here's one just glued. This is the last one I glued. Here's my gusset. Here's my valley. And on one side of the valley, I'm putting my glue up to the fold on the outer part. You can go in the fold on the inner part. Now this, I found my old glue bottle, which is good. It has a very good point. Make sure you cover just about all of it. This is a very important part of your book. So try to cover most of it. Not saturated, but cover it. Okay. Now I'm going to do the same thing. We're going to fold our peak together. I'm confusing myself. I do this from the outside with my glue. Here it is. Gluing those two together. We have 3 hinges. I'm trying to get this in the light so you can see. 3 hinges that are glued together and gussets in between. And a gusset at the front. Okay, now this is our next peak on this side, so that's what we're going to glue together. And then we're going to glue together the last one, and that will be our 5 hinges. Okay, now turn it over. Putting glue in the valley, on one side of the valley. We're going to glue faster. Get all the way to the bottom. You want it to hold tightly in the book. Okay, now we're going to pinch our hinge together. Pinch your mountain fold. And we now have 4 hinges glued together, along with 1/2-inch gussets in between. This will be our last one. We haven't glued yet. So this is what's going to get glued next. We turn it over, put glue on one side of the valley, I have thought of doing these all in separate pieces. Each hinge is a separate piece. But I don't know if it will hold well enough. I'll try it on my own and I'll let you know. Because that would make it a lot easier to explain, but I don't think it would be as sturdy. Okay, so press your mountain folds together. You should now have 5 hinges. Press them all down well. So we have our 1.5 area at the front, the wing. We have a 1/2-inch gusset before the hinges start. We have a 1/2-inch gusset in between all the hinges. And then we have that extra 1/2-inch gusset at the back before our wing. So that should be what your hinge looks like. All 5 pages are going to slip over these. We're going to glue them onto here. So this piece will go in between our page. One of these hinges. And this is the same size as your page, so it will fit right over it. We're going to angle these corners to make it easier to get on. But I want to let them dry a little bit. So basically, that's your hinge. And like I said, depending on how many pages you want, if you only want 3 pages in your book, you make 3 hinges, figure it out on the paper like I did, leave that 1/2 inch at the back, and then add your 1.5-inch wing over here. And then you would measure from the end of this 1.5-inch wing to the beginning of the next 1.5-inch wing, and that's how wide you would have to make your spine piece when we make the cover. So it will change if you're making less pages. It would also change if you don't want a 1/2 inch in between. You're going to make thinner pages, not as many flip outs or waterfalls. You could leave 1/4 inch in between each hinge. So that would also change the size of your spine. The spine will be this wide. So our spine is going to, the book I'm making now is going to be 3 inches, I hope. Oh, I'm a little short. Where's my fold? Here's the fold. It comes to 3 inches, yes. From this fold to the back fold, where the wings are, will be 3 inches. But yours, depending on how wide you want them, how much space you want in between, and how many pages you want, it may be smaller. You may need a 2.5-inch spine or a 2-inch spine. If you're going to do 1/4-inch spaces, it's going to be quite a bit less. Okay, so that's the binding for this size book that I'm making today. You're changing your numbers. Don't follow this one. You're going to have to recalculate your binding piece. You would change, if you're going to do a 1/4 inch, each one of these first spaces would be a 1/4 inch, a 1/4 inch, a 1/4 inch, and it would be a 1/4 inch here at the back piece. So figure it out on paper first, just like I did mine. You need the wing, you need the gusset, either a 1/2 inch or a 1/4 inch. You need, don't change the size of these because they'll be too short. You won't be able to glue on your page. So always keep these at a 1/2 inch, these two. These were the mountain folds that we made. And this would be a 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch. That's if you want it thinner. You're just going to make basic pages with a pocket on or one flip out. Something simple. Okay, so I hope that helps. And you would also add up all your numbers like we did here if you're changing things so that you get the width of the paper that you're going to need to do your scoring. For us, it turned out to be 11 inches. Yours would be shorter. And then you cut it the size of your page, not the cover, but the page. And that will be your binding piece. Okay, I'm going to let this dry. And then we'll be back and I'm going to work on making the cover. I'm going to calculate how big our cover should be. I know that for me, I want a 3-inch spine on my book in order to fit this hinge. It's going to go right in the middle of our spine on the inside of the book. So I know that mine is going to be 3 inches wide. You've changed yours, add it all up, and find out how wide you need it. And that's about it. I hope that wasn't too confusing. If you have any questions, please email me at inthepapercloset@gmail.com. I'll see if I can answer your questions. And please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel so you'll be notified when I put up the next part, which will be our cover. Calculating our cover and putting it together. You'll need cardstock for that. And also 2 pieces of chipboard. 2, possibly 3 if you're using small. I use 12 by 12 chipboard. Let me see if I can get it for you. I have, for this size book, I used 2 of these. We did our front cover on one, back cover on the other, and then we had a piece left over for the hinge, for the spine. But if you're using 8.5 by 11 inch chipboard, this is medium weight chipboard I got on Amazon. Mine is black, but it also comes in white or crepe color. So whatever you have, whatever you're using. So at 8.5 by 11 sheets, you would need 3. 12 by 12 sheets, you would need 2. And we also need cardstock. We're going to wrap our cover. You'll need 3 sheets of 8.5 by 11 inch, whatever you picked as your base color. Remember, I picked the black base color for my pages and my cover. So whatever color you picked, we'll need 3 sheets of this. We're going to have to attach them together to fit this whole book on it. And we're going to wrap it. So you need glue, 3 sheets of cardstock, 2 or 3 sheets of chipboard depending on the size. You'll need probably a craft knife to cut your chipboard, and a ruler. If you have a ruler, I think any ruler, one edge of it has a metal strip in it. That's what you want to use to cut your chipboard with, because your craft knife goes right up against this. If you use the plastic end, you're going to chip it all off. So make sure you have a ruler that has a metal edge, or a fully metal ruler will work. A craft knife, and maybe a pencil. And that's about it. Chipboard, cardstock, ruler, craft knife, and glue. I don't use double-sided tape. We're going to put glue when we put this in our book. We're just going to use glue on the back of our spine, our hinge piece. And we'll get glued to the spine of our book. Okay, so that's about it. I hope it wasn't too long or too confusing. So please, like I said, hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and you'll be notified when the next part is up, part 3, the cover. Okay, thank you very much. Hope to see you soon. Bye.